Hello everyone, this is Lord Kurnion and I am here finally with round 4 of the Colonial Carnage GT. Sorry for the delay getting this report up. I had exams and then right after exams I realized I had a week to paint my entire Brawler Bash army, so I really didn't have much time to do recording. Fortunately I had a lot of notes from this game and the extra time has actually awarded me a lot of extra time for reflection on this game because as you might be aware when I get to the army list, it might not have gone very well for me. So here's my list. If you haven't seen it before, I forget what gifts I rolled for the Bloodthirster, but it's not really relevant in this game. Here's my opponent's list. He had a Tomb King with a great weapon, heavy armor, Dragon Bane Gem, and Iron Curse icon. He had a level 4 Leech Priest, Lore of Nehekara, with a scroll, and this is his Hierophant. He has a level 4 Leech Priest as well, with Lore of Undeath and the Scroll of Shielding. He has a Herald who is the BSB with the Charmed Shield and Magic Resistance 3 item. He then has 2 units of 18 archers with full command, a unit of 16 archers with full command and light armor, 3 units of 5 horse archers, a big unit of 40 tomb guard with full command halberd and razor standard, 2 solo catapults, a hero titan, and a casket. So if this list looks familiar, that's because this is the list that just won Masters. I'm sitting on table 2 right now, and I'm playing Jacob Brandon, who is the reigning master. I had never faced Lore of Undeath before. This was obviously before he won Masters, so I was a little I actually thought it was a good matchup for me. Tomb Kings just never really worry me. If any of my units get into any of his in combat, it's just going to take it off. There's nothing in his army that can defeat me except for those Tomb Guard could do damage, but I mean, as long as I do a couple wounds to them or get a good combo charge off, those Tomb Guards are going down in a round or two. So, I thought it was a good matchup, but we'll see how it goes. He obviously has a massive advantage in magic here, between the casket, the channels, and then he has the hero titan. So he'll be casting every spell with +4 plus D3 to my nil basically bonus casting to dispel. So it's going to be tough for me to stop stuff. So I thought the best way for me to do this basically is to bum rush him. And Tomb Kings I always kind of feel is a wonderful game of bum rush the mage bunker. So that's what I was going to try to do. I wanted to send my Bloodthirster into his bunker as quickly as possible, try to grind that unit down. I wanted my Bloodletters and my Soul Grinder and my cannons trying to get into his Tomb Guard. If I get a good flame template from my Soul Grinder to weaken them, and then get a good combo charge with a couple of my Chariots and a unit of Bloodletters into that Tomb Guard unit, that unit's probably crumbling in one round. Once I punch through that Tomb Guard unit, then it'll just be cleanup. So I want to weaken them with my Soul Grinder and then take them out. And then once that's the case, I'll be able to get into his archer bunkers and it'll just be a time to clean up the rest of his army. So we go to deployment, going left to right for my opponent. He has his two catapults there in the back. In the front, he has 2 units of horse archers there. Kind of in the middle of the screen, he has 1 unit of 18 archers with full command. Next to that, he has a unit of 16 archers with full command, and in that unit is his Hierophant and his BSB. Going a little bit more towards the right, he has another unit of horse archers. Slightly behind them is the unit of Tomb Guard, and then behind that is another unit of 18 archers with his level 4 Undeath there. Behind that is the Hero Titan, and in this far corner he has his casket. So he kind of castled somewhat in the middle, kind of his left center, my right center. And so for my deployment, I kind of lined up directly across from him. I want to kind of loop around both flanks and put pressure on both of his flanks, try to get into his back line. So to do that, I put, for my side, going left to right, I have my unit of Fleshhounds. Behind that is one of my cannons. Behind that is my Bloodthirster. On the hill, I have 2 units of Furies. Next to the hill, I have, once again, a unit of Fleshhounds, and behind that a Skull Cannon. Next to the Fleshhounds, I have my Soul Grinder. Behind that is the unit of Bloodletters. Then my bigger unit of Bloodletters is next to the Soul Grinder, and behind that is my Herald with Hatred. So I was able to line up like I wanted to, with my Soul Grinder directly across from his Tomb Guard unit, and then both of my Bloodletters also lining up against that, with all of my catapults in range to get into his big unit of Tomb Guard. Meanwhile, my Bloodthirster is over on my far left. in position to loop around and try to get into his bunker as quickly as possible. So Tomb King's won the roll for first turn, and he doesn't really do much movement. He just kind of shuffles a little bit to get into spell range. We go into Magic, and he has a pretty significant advantage. As I said, he had all game. He was able to get off pretty much whatever he wanted. Even sometimes when I saved all my dice to dispel a spell, I failed to dispel it because he just had such a huge advantage with the +4/+D3. So he starts off with raising a unit of Carrion. He puts them there. He also raises a Corpse Cart, which he puts there behind his Tomb Guard. And with that, we go into Demon's turn 1. So as I said, I kind of want to whip around both flanks. I move my Soul Grinder on the right all the way up and over, trying to get to the flank of his Tomb Guard. Both my Bloodletter units move up to put pressure on that unit as well. My Skull Cannons take aim at his 2 catapults. And otherwise, everything moves up on the far left flank. My Bloodthirster's in position to charge over everything. It's an 18-inch charge for me to get into his bunker right now, which is pretty doable for me. And otherwise, I move one of my units of Furies all the way up into the teeth of his Horse Archers to prevent them from chaffing and to basically force a response, force him to charge. So we go to Magic, and it's actually both good and bad for me. I ended up rolling Winds of Slaanesh, so it hits my whole army potentially, and it hits his army. So the good news is that I rolled a 6 for one of his catapults, and it took it off, which was nice. The bad news is that it also did damage to my Bloodthirster, and also did damage. It did 1 wound to my Bloodthirster. I also rolled a 6 for one of my Skull Cannons. It did a wound to that, and it then rolled a 6 for one of my units of Furies. And even though I was in general range, I rolled ridiculously high, and the unit of Furies that are in front of the Horse Archers are now down to only 2 models, which is just not good. It's down to 2 or 3 models. Go to shooting, and my cannons, now that one of his catapults is taken care of, the other 2 cannons line up on this one and are able to take it off, which is great. And we go right into Tomb King's turn 2. So he starts off with a charge of his Carrion into my Furies, and he makes it. Otherwise, he reforms his unit of 18 archers to chaff up my 1 unit of Fleshhounds. His Horse Archers there charge my 3 remaining Furies that were left after Slaanesh decided to punch most of them off the table. And then there in the middle, you see his other unit of Horse Archers that was on the hill moved up to chaff up my Fleshhounds. Yep, there's that. Otherwise, you just kind of shuffled a little bit. He moved his level 4 Undeath all the way over from one side of the archer unit to the other. And yeah, I guess getting positioned to summon stuff. The Corpse Cart moved up to face towards the middle. Yep, there's the level 4 Undeath. And so we go into Magic, and he gets a pretty dominant phase again. And he starts off with throwing a couple dice at his casket on my Soul Grinder. I threw all my dice to stop that and was able to get rid of it. I made a mistake with that because I wasn't looking ahead enough, because he followed that up with throwing a bunch of dice at the number 5 spell for Lore of Undeath, and he raised a Terrorgeist right there. So there's the reason why he moved his Lore of Undeath all the way over to this side. He was able to raise the Terrorgeist right there in position to scream at my Soul Grinder, which is just not good. He was also able to raise a level 1 Necromancer, and he put him right there in front of the Tomb Guard, kind of both acting as chaff and, yeah, mostly just acting as chaff. So we go into shooting phase. He starts off with the Scream, and he rolls boxcars for my Soul Grinder for the Scream. So that's a total of 18 minus my leadership of 7. It does 11 hits, and I was clearly not able to save many of them, and it drops my Soul Grinder in 1 Scream. His archers then shoot at my Bloodletters and kill a couple, and so we go into combat, and his Carrion are able to wipe up my Furies. And so we go into Demon's turn 2. So I charge, both my units of Fleshhounds charge the unit that is chaffing them, and my Bloodthirster completes the charge into his bunker. It was an 18, it was pretty likely, so I was able to roll the 8 on the Swift Stride. Where my Bloodthirster is not actually where he is. The hill interfered with ranking him up where I wanted him to be. He, in reality, is all the way on the other side of the unit, in base contact with his Hierophant, and but I just couldn't put him there because of the hill. Otherwise, things kind of shuffle. My Bloodletters actually back up a little bit, I think I was a little freaked out by the fact that my Soul Grinder got, pummeled in one round. And then, as you can see, my two, there's a picture of that, and my two Skull Cannons lined up now to shoot at his casket. So the first Skull Cannon shoots, and I roll a misfire, and I roll a misfire 5, so I can't shoot this turn, otherwise it's fine. My other Skull Cannon takes aim at the casket as well. I roll, I hit, and I fail to wound. Oh well, it's toughness 10, so it's not that likely. It's about a 50-50. I figure between both cannons, I should roll a 4+ to wound for one of them, but unfortunately one of them misfired. We go to combat. His unit champ challenges my Bloodthirster. I have to accept. I obviously stomp his unit champ, and I win combat. He crumbles a little bit. These Fleshhounds charge the unit that had charged the unit of Horse Archers. Obviously took them off, and here this unit of Fleshhounds does a significant amount of damage to this unit of Archers. So we go to Tomb King's turn 3. His Carrion charged the flank of my Fleshhounds that had until recently been fighting the Horse Archers, and he makes that charge pretty easily. He did take a difficult terrain, though, from leaving the forest, which was at least nice. Otherwise, he moved his Terrorgeist over to scream at my Bloodthirster, which is obviously not ideal. And he, in Magic Phase, he was able to raise another Necromancer where you see him there on the hill. He actually didn't do any wounds with his Scream. I think he rolled like a 2 or a 3, so no wounds even went through. What actually ended up taking out my Bloodthirster is he was able to get either a buff spell or an invocation off with his Necromancer that he just raised on the hill. He was able to raise back the unit champion. He then challenged. I whiffed all of my attacks, did like 1 or 2 wounds to his unit champion, then wasn't able to Thunderstomp because I was in a challenge. I ended up losing by a couple, and I completely miffed my leadership test. I think I rolled like an 11, which combined with the static res just crumbled my Bloodthirster off the table, which is obviously terrible and a little bit unlucky, but, it was a little bit risky for me to put him out there by himself when there's a Terrorgeist on the table. So there's my Bloodthirster standing there in shame. Otherwise, my Fleshhounds were able to do a couple wounds to his Carrion, and the other unit continued to chip away at his Archer bunker, but not quite eliminate them yet. So we go to Demons turn 3. One of my Skull Cannons basically had a good opportunity. Well, I thought it was a good opportunity here. I saw this position where I could charge a Skull Cannon into his Necromancer that had moved over here to this flank, and when I kill him, I could then overrun into his Corpse Cart that he had moved over to this side. And then after I kill that, I can reform to face the flank of his Tomb Guard before my turn 4. So I thought that would be a good double move and then free reform with that to then be able to charge into his Tomb Guard. So with my Bloodthirster dead, I then realized I had to sort of start putting pressure on this unit. I had to get rid of this unit and get my Bloodletters into the back line. That's now the only way I can deal with his mages. So I move my 1 unit of 18 up a little bit into a threatening position against his Tomb Guard. If he charges me, it's pretty likely he will then be able to kill me and overrun, but his overrun is very unlikely to get out of the arc of my Bloodletters that are right there. I then reformed my Herald on the Skull Throne and my other cannon to be able to then countercharge. So the idea is if he charges my unit of 18 Bloodletters, he'll probably kill them. When he does, if he overruns, he won't get out of arc of my Bloodletters, and I'll be able to charge him with my Skull Throne, both my Skull Cannons, and my 1 unit of Bloodletters, and probably take him off in 1 round. If he decides not to charge, well then that's still fine too. I can then charge with my unit of 18 Bloodletters, which is an almost guaranteed charge, and then I once again will have a couple of chariots that I can throw in that are pretty likely to make it. I think they're all like within a 9 of a roll. Without much left to do, we go into combat. My Fleshhounds here are able to finally deal with the Carrion, and this unit is able to finally deal with the unit of Archers, 18 Archers that had moved there. Otherwise, his Horse Archers, which had been brought back up to full strength after an invocation from his Necromancer that he put on the hill, was able to kill the rest of my Furies and reform there into a conga line. My skull cannon that charged his necromancer obviously killed him with impact hits alone and was able to overrun into the corpse cart like I planned. So this is a good position. I should be able to kill the corpse cart in my turn, reform to face his Tomb Guard unit, and yeah, from there, be able to provide more impact hits for my next turn. Inevitable charge of his Tomb Guard bunker. Yep, so there's that. My other cannon had shot to try to hit, basically make him pass a lookout, sir, with his Hierophant, just aiming for luck. And if I overshot, I'd hit. And if I overshot with a decent distance, I'd be able to hit his, Hero Titan. Sorry, forgetting words. I'd be able to hit his Hero Titan. He passed his lookout, sir, and I didn't roll high enough with the bounce. I think I only rolled like a 2, and I needed like a 10, a 6 or a 10. A 6 or an 8 over bounce to get him, and I didn't get it. So we go to Tomb King's turn 4, and he moves his horse archers up just a touch to kind of chaff up both units. He didn't take the charge with his Tomb Guard into my unit of 18 Bloodletters, which, oh well. Magic, he was able to cast the movement spell with his level 4 Priest was able to hit both his unit of archers and his necromancer. So now the horse archers are fully chaffing up my flesh hounds, and the level 1 necro that was on the hill, that now moved off the hill, is there to basically block the overrun of my flesh hounds. So if I charge into the flank of his horse archers, my overrun will take me into his necromancer, and I won't be able to overrun into position. Yep, so there's that. We go to magic phase, and this was a really, really clever move of him. He raised up a Mortis engine. This kind of serves double purpose. On the one hand, it provides regen. On the other hand, it has a Banshee Scream, and on the third hand, if I kill it, it then explodes, and it being turn 4, it explodes at strength 4. So pretty smart move, I thought. So we go. That was, I think, all he raised in Magic this phase. It was a relatively low phase, and he threw most of his dice at this, and I was able to use the rest of my dice to stop the other spell. So he goes to Scream again with his Banshee Scream from his Mortis engine, and he rolls Boxcars again, and was able to deal the last 3 wounds to my Skull Cannon, which is a little unfortunate. That frees up his Terrorgeist, which had continued to move over to this flank. His Terrorgeist, now free, was able to charge into, or was able to scream at my unit of Fleshhounds here. Was able to do a significant number of wounds. I think he rolled like a 9 or a 10 this time for his scream for the Terrorgeist. And now I only have 1 Fleshhound left, which is a little unfortunate. The archers continue to chip away at my Bloodletters, do a couple more wounds. And with the Skull Cannon removed, his Corpse Cart just reforms in combat. So Demon's turn 4, my 1 unit of Fleshhounds charges into his Skeleton Archers. He didn't do a great job of chaffing me with that Necromancer there. I was able to wheel to get out of, so my overrun doesn't hit him, which was nice. That was the plan. And then my Bloodletters charged the flank of the Mortis engine. The idea here was the same as the idea with the Chariot. I charge this, I overrun into the Corpse Cart, then in my turn I can reform, or then when I kill the Corpse Cart in his turn, I can reform to charge his Tomb Guard. That was the plan. Same idea as before, just using the overrun cascade and charge into a fresh unit to get a free reform to guarantee that I can get a charge into his Tomb Guard. Go to Magic phase and I roll Slaanesh again, which is just not good. It ends up knocking the Herald off my throne, so now nothing has hatred, which is really unfortunate. And then I roll really high for my for the Lore of Slaanesh here as well and drop this unit by a significant portion. This guy takes another bead on the casket. I roll, I hit, I fail to wound. In combat, yeah, I drop this Mortis engine really easily. He then explodes. He kills 2 of my Bloodletters, but I'm able to make the overrun into his Corpse Cart. These guys deal with the Horse Archers, and they elect to overrun, and they end up overrunning into his Terrorgeist. The Terrorgeist is just in their overrun path, just barely. So I really didn't have a choice. I wasn't allowed to overrun into his Corpse Cart because I hit the Terrorgeist first, which is unfortunate. And yeah, there's the picture of them making the overrun. So we go to Tomb King's turn 5. So in my turn, I had moved my Bloodletters up to threaten. I have +1 movement over him. I'm movement 5, he's movement 4. So I put it in a position where my Bloodletters needed 9, and therefore his Tomb Guard needed 10 to make this charge into this unit of Bloodletters. With the Skull Throne right next to them, and the cannon right next to that, I figured I'm putting a significant amount of pressure on this unit at this point. My Bloodletters that are fighting his Corpse Cart now will be able to kill them and reform to basically guarantee a charge against his Tomb Guard. The unit of Bloodletters here has a 9-inch charge, which isn't very likely, but the more important thing is that the Skull Throne and the Skull Cannon both have very easy charges to get into his Tomb Guard then. So I put these guys there in a threatening position. Maybe I'll make it, maybe I won't, but the more important thing is I should be able to get my unit of 18 Bloodletters and 2 of my chariots into the Tomb Guard like I wanted. So he saw this and he's like, well, this is a nice get out of jail free card, and worst thing that happens is he fails the charge, and I just get a couple more units into combat with him. Not a terrible deal. So he takes the charge and he ends up rolling the 10 he needs to get into the combat here, which is just terrible for me. Otherwise, he moves up his units to prevent my unit of Bloodletters from reforming to try to charge into his Mage Bunker. The level 4 Undeath moves out of his unit of 18 archers and into the bunker of 16. One of his Necromancers moves up to where you see him there on the hill, and the Hero Titan moves next to him to, like I said, prevent my reform from being able to get into his archer bunker. He did a pretty good job of screening me. So there's that at the end of the turn, or at the end of movement. After screens, he screams me down to 1 Fleshhound remaining, which is unfortunate. And we go into combat, and he's able to drop the unit of Bloodletters. There weren't many left, and without hatred at all, I really wasn't able to do much. I was swinging for the fences against his Tomb Herald. I wasn't able to against his Tomb King. I wasn't able to get a killing blow, and then he just wiped my unit. These guys killed the Corpse Cart like expected, and reformed to face his Tomb Guard. And so we go to Demon's turn 5, and it's just at this point, you know what, it's time to pile in. So I charge my Skull Cannon, my Skull Throne, and my unit of Bloodletters into this unit. They all make it. Great. Without much left to do, we go straight into combat. My Bloodletters and my Skull and my 2 chariots do a pretty significant amount of damage. By the time the dust settles after Crumble, he has 12 guys left. So did a pretty significant amount of damage. Unfortunately, he still has guys left. He was able to kill my Skull Cannon, do a couple of wounds to my unit of 18 Bloodletters. And yeah, he still has guys left. I once again tried swinging a lot of killing blow at his Tomb King. Wasn't able to get a killing blow through this turn though. And then over here in combat here, his Terrorgeist is able to deal with the last Fleshhound. So we go to Tomb King's turn 6. And yeah, this is a picture of his unit of Tomb Guard after magic. So what he did is he charged his Terrorgeist into the rear of my Skull Throne and was able to scream it in his shooting phase and kill the Skull Throne. What he also did is he brought his Necromancer up. He then raised another Necromancer, and between a buff from his Lore of Nehekara Mage and between 2 castings of Invocation from his Necromancers, he was able to bring his unit of Tomb Guard up from 12 all the way up to 16, or all the way up to 26 rather. Ridiculous magic phase. Tons of raising going on. He was rolling pretty hot for the invocations, but even without that, getting 3 raise spells off on these guys in one turn, it just shows how dangerous this list can be. And then yeah, in combat, it's pretty writings on the wall at this point. At this point, I'm just swinging for pride. I put a lot of attacks on his Tomb Prince. I got the killing blow through, but he had cast the ward save spell on this unit, and he passed his 5-up ward save, so the Tomb King survives. And then he just wipes my unit off the table, which is a little unfortunate. So the result is a 20-0, as you might have expected by the way the game went. Yeah, I was just completely unprepared to fight this army, which apparently everyone at Masters was too, because this list and this player since then has gone on to win the Masters. So you know, it's obviously disappointing to get a 20-0, but I mean, if I have to get 20-0 at a tournament, I mean, that may as well be against the Masters player running the Masters list. What I think I could have done differently, I should have put more focus on his Tomb Guard. Basically, if I got my unit of Bloodletters in, well, basically, if I deployed differently and put in a position where my Furies, turn 1, get in front of his Tomb Guard and shaft them, I have the freedom then to move up aggressively with my Bloodletters, my Skull Cannon, my Skull Throne, and my Bloodthirster. Then my turn 2, my Furies will be able to charge out of the way, and I'll be able to get two units of Bloodletters, a couple of my Chariots, and my Bloodthirster all into this unit. I get that sort of power into this unit, I then crumble them. I drop this unit, he has 0 combat threats. Then it's just a case of him raising chaff. At that point, it's going to be hard for him to hide his mages, and my Bloodletter units, which are the only units in my army that have champions that can eat challenges from my Bloodthirster, they'll be then free in his backline, be able to chop through units a couple at a time, and yeah, with that, I would have been much more able to get a unit of Bloodletters into his mage bunker with my Bloodthirster, so that my unit champion can eat his challenge, and my Bloodthirster can then go to town. At that point, the writing would have been on the wall for his unit, and I think I would have been able to get a pretty significant win out of that. Obviously, it would have still been challenging because of the amount that he can raise in one turn, but I think bum rushing this unit and putting pressure on his bunker very early, making sure to get a unit of Bloodletters into the bunker along with my Bloodthirster, would have definitely changed the game around and made it so my Bloodthirster didn't die on his own fighting the bunker. So that was the report, a little bit of a disappointing end. After this game, I dropped all the way down to table 5, so I am sitting in 10th place. And yeah, last report of this tournament will be coming up, and then I'll follow this up with my 5 Brawler Bash games. Anyway, that's the report. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys next time.